Well, look who's here. Thanks for coming out tonight, folks. Name's Noah, and let me tell you something right off the bat. I used to be just your average neighborhood carpenter. You know, the guy who'd show up to fix your fence, maybe build you a shed, charge you a reasonable price, and call it a day. But then, oh boy, then I got a DM that changed everything. Now, when I say DM, I don't mean sliding into someone's Instagram. We're talking about the original direct message here. No notification sound, no little blue check mark. Just this voice that comes out of nowhere while I'm trying to enjoy my morning coffee. And the message? Build me an ark. I'm thinking, ark? Like a boat? And then comes the kicker. Make it big enough for two of every animal. I'm looking around my workshop, and I've got maybe enough wood to build a decent chicken coop. And this guy wants me to construct what essentially amounts to the world's first floating zoo. But here's the thing about getting instructions from the big guy upstairs. You don't exactly get a blueprint on AutoCAD. Oh, no. It's all verbal. Make it 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, 30 cubits high. And I'm standing there thinking, could you maybe, I don't know, send that in an email? Maybe with some diagrams? A YouTube tutorial, perhaps? 300 cubits. Do you know how long that is? Neither did I. I had to Google it. Well, not Google exactly. I had to ask around town. Hey Bob, what's a cubit? Hey Sarah, you good with measurements? Turns out, nobody knew. It's like getting a recipe that says add some salt. Some could mean a pinch, could mean half a cup. With my luck, I was going to end up building either a rowboat or the Titanic. So there I am, doing the math, converting cubits to feet, and I realize I'm looking at building something roughly the size of a modern cruise ship. With hand tools. No power drills, no crane, no construction crew. Just me, my hammer, and what was about to become a very intimate relationship with splinters. And the deadline? Oh, this is rich. The deadline is before it starts raining. Not next Tuesday, not by the end of the month. Before it starts raining. You know what the weather forecast was looking like? Sunny skies for the next 6 months. I'm thinking, great, I've got time. Famous last words, right there. Now, I've got to tell you, the first thing that broke on this project wasn't a nail, wasn't a piece of wood. It was my pride. Here I am, supposed to be this experienced carpenter, and I'm looking at this massive project thinking, I have no idea what I'm doing. I built cabinets, not aircraft carriers. But you know what really gets me? The neighbors. Oh, the neighbors! I start clearing the land, laying out the foundation, and here comes Mrs. Henderson from next door. Noah, dear, what you building there? Oh, just a boat, Mrs. Henderson. A boat? In your backyard? Isn't the nearest body of water about 100 miles away? And that's when it hit me. I'm about to become that neighbor. You know the one. The guy with the weird project in his yard that makes everyone else's property values go down. Pretty soon, I've got the whole neighborhood association breathing down my neck. Noah, we need to talk. This vessel, it's not exactly in keeping with our community standards. Community standards. I'm trying to save humanity and animals from complete extinction, and they're worried about their community standards. Well, Bob, would you prefer I let your family drown, or can we maybe bend the HOA rules just this once? But the real challenge? Family meetings. Oh boy, the family meetings. Picture this. I call everyone together. My wife, my 3 sons, their wives. Okay, everyone, gather. Round. We need to talk about the boat. Complete silence. Not questions, not excitement, not even confusion. Just this collective sigh that said, Dad's lost it. Dad has officially lost it. My wife looks at me with that look. You married folks know the look I'm talking about. That I love you, but I'm questioning every life choice that led me to this moment. Look, she says, Noah, honey, are you having a midlife crisis? Because if you want a boat, we can buy a nice little fishing boat. We don't need to build whatever this is. And trying to explain divine instructions to your family? Good luck with that. No, honey, this isn't a midlife crisis. God told me to build this. God told you? Yes. God. Yes. Told you. Yes. To build a boat. A big boat. In our backyard. Yes. The looks I got. If looks could kill, I would have been meeting my maker a lot sooner than planned. But here's the thing. When you get instructions from the top, you don't really have the option to negotiate. There's no HR department for divine mandates. No employee handbook that says, if you feel your assigned task is unreasonable, please contact your supervisor. So I start gathering materials. Now in today's world, you'd go to Home Depot, right? Load up the truck, maybe rent one of those flatbed trailers. But back in my day, material procurement meant walking into the forest and having a very awkward conversation with trees. Hey there, beautiful oak. Sorry, but I'm going to need you for a higher purpose. And let me tell you, when you're cutting down enough trees to build something the size of a football stadium, you start feeling pretty guilty about the whole environmental impact thing. I'm out there thinking, I'm supposed to be saving the world, but I'm also single-handedly deforesting half the region. The irony was not lost on me. But the real kicker? The wood quality. You think lumber shopping is tough now, with your treated wood and your pressure-treated this and your weather-resistant that? Try selecting trees that need to survive the literal end of the world. I'm out there giving each tree the full quality control inspection. You look sturdy. You're going to be part of the hull. You're a little too naughty. You can be interior paneling. And the amount of wood. Oh my goodness, the amount of wood. I calculated it out. I needed roughly enough lumber to build about 50 modern houses. 50. I'm one guy with an axe, and I need to harvest, cut, shape, and assemble enough wood to stock a lumber yard. If I were on social media back then, my posts would have been, Day 47 of ARC construction, still cutting trees, send help, and better tools. Mostly better tools. Speaking of social media, can you imagine if I were building the ARC today? I'd definitely be documenting the whole process. Day 1, starting the world's most important DIY project. Day 15, still no manual, winging it. Day 30, my back hurts. Hashtag ARClife, hashtag blessed, hashtag why didn't I just become a tax collector like my mother wanted. But you know what the worst part about the whole construction process was? The complete lack of a test run. Think about that for a minute. Every other boat builder in history gets to take their vessel out for a little spin, see how it handles, make adjustments. Me? I get to find out if my boat floats when the entire world is flooding. No pressure there. It's like being a chef who's never allowed to taste the food until the most important dinner party of their career. I sure hope this 1,000-foot wooden box actually floats, because if it doesn't, literally everyone dies. Talk about performance anxiety. And the construction itself. Let me paint you a picture here. I'm working alone. Well, mostly alone. My sons help when they can, but they've got their own lives, their own jobs. So most days, it's just me, my tools, and this absolutely massive project that seems to grow bigger every time I look at it. You ever have one of those projects where you make a tiny bit of progress, then step back and realize you've barely made a dent? That was every single day for about 2 years. I'd work from sunrise to sunset, feel like I'd accomplished something, then wake up the next morning and think, did I even do anything yesterday? But here's what kept me going, and this is where it gets interesting. Every single nail I hammered, I started developing this weird mantra. You know how people have their meditation sounds, Om and all that? Mine was the sound of the hammer hitting the nail. Clink, that little metallic sound became my prayer, my meditation, my therapy session, all rolled into one. Clink. This is going to work. Clink. This is going to float. Clink. My family won't disown me. Clink. The neighbors will understand eventually. Clink, clink, clink. It was like a woodworking prayer wheel, and that rhythm kept me sane through some very insane times. And speaking of staying sane, let's talk about the marketing problem I had. Word gets around town, right? Noah's building something weird in his backyard. Pretty soon I've got curiosity seekers dropping by. Hey Noah, heard you're building a boat. Yep. What for? Rain. Rain? Big rain. How big? Very big. I tried putting up a sign, experienced shipbuilder seeking additional crew members. Must be willing to work for spiritual fulfillment. No pay, but guarantee job security for the foreseeable future. You know how many people applied? 0. Zilch. Not a single person. But I did get plenty of volunteers for the supervisory positions. Oh yes, suddenly everyone in town was a naval architecture expert. Noah, you know that bow angle looks a little steep. Noah, are you sure about that wood choice? Noah, have you considered fiberglass? Fiberglass! From people who couldn't build a birdhouse if their lives depended on it. And the weather reports. This is the best part. Every morning, I'd go outside, look at the sky, not a cloud in sight. Beautiful sunny day after beautiful sunny day. And people start talking. Noah, you sure about this rain thing? Maybe you misunderstood? Maybe it was metaphorical rain? Metaphorical rain. Like I spent 2 years of my life building a metaphorical boat. Oh yes, this is just performance art, everyone. I'm making a statement about the human condition. Right. But you know what really tested my faith? The day I ran out of nails. I'm about 60% done with the project. I reach for my nail bucket, and it's empty. Completely empty. And wouldn't you know it? That's the night when all my doubts decided to have a party in my brain. I'm lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and my brain is just going to town. What if you imagined the whole thing? What if you're just having an extended breakdown? What if there is no flood coming, and you're just the crazy boat guy now? What if you run out of money before you finish? What if it doesn't float? What if it does float, but there's no flood, and you've just built the world's most expensive backyard decoration? That was a long night, folks. A very long night. But you know what got me through it? The next morning, I found a single nail. One nail just sitting there on my workbench. Not where I left it. Not where it should have been. Just sitting there like a little metal message. Keep going. One nail became 2 nails, 2 became 4, and somehow I had enough to finish the job. Now I'm not saying it was a miracle, but okay, actually, that's exactly what I'm saying. When you're building God's boat, the supply chain works a little differently. But the real adventure started when it came time to load the passengers. Oh boy, the passengers. See, building the boat was just the first part of this whole operation. The second part? Convincing 2 of every animal species on Earth to come aboard for what was essentially a very long, very cramped cruise to nowhere. Now, how exactly do you send out invitations to the animal kingdom? There's no postal service for elephants, no email system for eagles. So I'm basically standing in my backyard yelling, "All aboard, 2 by 2, orderly fashion, please," like some kind of biblical cruise director. And they came. I still don't understand how, but they came. Pairs of animals started showing up from everywhere. Elephants walking down Main Street, giraffes ducking under power lines, hippos somehow making their way from wherever hippos come from. My quiet little neighborhood suddenly looked like the world's most chaotic zoo. The logistics were a nightmare. Try organizing boarding procedures for creatures that don't speak the same language, don't follow the same rules, and have completely different dietary requirements. The lions are looking at the sheep like they're reading a menu, the sheep are looking at me like I've lost my mind, and I'm trying to play diplomatic cruise ship captain to the animal kingdom. And the complaints. Oh, the complaints. If animals could fill out customer service forms, I would have been buried in paperwork. The cats were upset about sharing space with the dogs, the elephants thought their accommodation was too small, the monkeys were complaining about everything just on principle. It was like managing a floating apartment complex with the world's most diverse and difficult tenant population. But the real controversy? The unicorns. Everyone always asks about the unicorns. Noah, where are the unicorns? Why didn't the unicorns make it? Look, I sent out the invitation. I set up a boarding slot. I even made a special VIP accommodation area. But did they show up? No! Too good for the ark, apparently. Too proud to slum it with the rest of us regular folks. The unicorns were probably off somewhere, having their own exclusive end-of-the-world party. Oh, we don't need Noah's little boat. We'll just prance our way through the apocalypse. Well, how'd that work out for you, unicorns? That's right, it didn't. Pride goeth before the flood, my mythical friends. Meanwhile, the insects were driving me absolutely crazy. Do you know how many species of insects there are? Thousands! And they all wanted to come aboard. My ark started looking less like a boat and more like the world's largest bug collection. I'm sneezing, I'm itching, I'm discovering allergies I didn't even know I had. Noah's Ark? More like Noah's antihistamine nightmare. But the absolute worst part of the animal loading process was the seating arrangements. Oh yes, seating arrangements. You think planning a wedding reception is complicated? Try figuring out who can sit next to whom when your guest list includes predators and prey, natural enemies, and creatures that instinctively want to eat each other. I had to create a whole diplomatic seating chart. Lions and zebras, opposite ends of the boat. Cats and mice, different decks entirely. Hawks and rabbits, don't even think about it. I felt like I was organizing the United Nations of the animal kingdom, and nobody had briefed me on the politics. And the climate control. Half the animals wanted it warm, half wanted it cool. The penguins are complaining it's too hot, the camels are complaining it's too cold. I'm running around trying to be the world's first HVAC technician for a floating zoo, and frankly, I was not qualified for any of this. Then there's the smell. Oh my goodness, the smell. You put that many animals in an enclosed space for an extended period of time, and you create what I like to call an olfactory situation. I needed about 50 tons of air freshener, and guess what wasn't invented yet? That's right, air freshener. I tried everything. Flowers, herbs, whatever I could find. Nothing worked. By day 3, we all just had to accept that we were living in what amounted to the world's largest barn, and barns have a very distinctive aroma. It builds character, I told myself. It builds character, and it builds very strong nasal defenses. But the sanitation situation. Folks, this is where it gets real. This is the part of the story they don't usually cover in Sunday school. You've got 2 of every animal living on a boat for 40 days and 40 nights. What do you think happens to all the waste products? That's right, it all had to go somewhere, and somewhere was my responsibility. I became the world's first waste management engineer, and let me tell you, it was not the career path I had planned. But somebody had to do it, and that somebody was me. Lucky me. I considered writing a handbook, Waste Management on a Floating Vessel, a beginner's guide to surviving the unthinkable. Chapter 1, Accept Your Fate. Chapter 2, Breathe Through Your Mouth. Chapter 3, Find a hobby that distracts you from your reality. End of handbook. But, you know what the strangest part of this whole animal situation was? They started forming their own little social groups. The elephants hung out with the hippos. The monkeys started their own comedy club. The owls became the night watch. The dolphins, even though they were technically in tanks, became the entertainment committee. It was like summer camp for species. And my family? My poor family was trying to manage their own emotional journey through all this. My wife became the unofficial camp counselor, trying to keep everyone's spirits up. My sons turned into the maintenance crew, constantly fixing things that kept breaking. Their wives became the food service coordinators, which was its own special kind of nightmare. Because feeding everyone was, well, it was complicated. The carnivores needed meat, the herbivores needed plants, the omnivores needed both, and everyone needed fresh water. I'm trying to manage the supply chain for the world's most diverse floating community, and my logistics degree consisted of pray for the best. But then the rain started. Oh, the rain. You know that moment when you've been planning something for years, and then it actually starts happening, and you realize you're not nearly as prepared as you thought you were? That was me, standing on the deck of my ark, feeling the first raindrops hit my face. The first drop hit my forehead, and I swear the whole world went quiet for just a second, like the universe was holding its breath. And then, whoosh, the heavens opened up like someone had pulled the plug on the world's largest bathtub. Suddenly, all those sunny days, all those perfect weather forecasts, all those people who said, "Are you sure about this rain thing?" Well, let's just say the weather department got it wrong. Very wrong. Biblical level wrong. And you know what my first thought was? It wasn't, "Thank goodness I built this boat." It wasn't, "Praise be, we're all going to be saved." It was, "I hope I remembered to waterproof the roof properly." Even in the middle of divine vindication, I'm worrying about construction details. The rain was coming down so hard I couldn't see 10 feet in front of me. The ground started turning into mud, then the mud started turning into puddles, then the puddles started turning into streams, and pretty soon we were looking at lakes where there used to be hills. That's when reality really hit me. This wasn't just a big rainstorm. This was the end of the world as we knew it. Everything I'd ever known, every place I'd ever been, every person I'd ever met who wasn't on this boat, it was all about to be underwater. And let me tell you, that's a heavy thought to carry when you're also trying to manage a floating zoo in the middle of the worst weather in human history. Stay positive, Noah. Keep everyone's spirits up, Noah. Oh, and by the way, everything you've ever loved is currently drowning. Have a nice day. But you know what saved my sanity during those first few days of the flood? The animals. Specifically, their complete inability to understand the gravity of the situation. The monkeys were still making jokes. The dolphins were still playing. The cats were still being, well, cats. They didn't know it was the end of the world. They just knew they were on a big boat with room service. There's something beautiful about that kind of innocence, you know? While I'm having an existential crisis about the fate of humanity, the pandas are just happy they've got bamboo and a decent view. Sometimes I think the animals handled the whole situation better than we humans did. By day 7, we were officially floating, not just sitting in a really big puddle, but actually floating on what used to be dry land. I remember looking over the side and seeing the tops of trees, then just seeing water, then realizing we were higher up than I'd ever been in my life, and we weren't on a mountain. We were on a boat I'd built with my own 2 hands. That's when the reality of what we'd accomplished really hit me. I'd built something that worked. Against all odds, despite all the doubts, in spite of my complete lack of shipbuilding experience, we had a floating vessel that was actually keeping us all alive. I felt like doing a victory dance, but the deck was still pretty slippery from all the rain. But floating was just the beginning of our adventure. Now we had to actually live on this thing. And let me tell you, the first week of Ark life was like the worst camping trip in history, except you can't go home early, and your tent is the size of a shopping mall, and your camping companions include creatures that could eat you. The daily routine was challenging. Every morning I'd wake up and do a head count. Well, not a head count exactly, but a species count. Okay, still got the elephants, check. Giraffes are accounted for, check. Has anyone seen the weasels? The weasels are very small and very sneaky, and I live in constant fear that they've found a way off the boat. And the noise! Oh my goodness, the noise! You think your neighbors are loud? Try living with 2,000 different species, all of whom have their own unique way of expressing themselves. The roosters crow at dawn, the owls hoot at night, the lions roar whenever they feel like it, and the monkeys never stop chattering. Ever. It's like living inside the world's loudest nature documentary. But you know what the weirdest part was? After about 2 weeks, you start to get used to it. The elephant snoring doesn't keep you awake anymore. The peacock's morning calls become your alarm clock. The sound of rain on the roof becomes your lullaby. It's amazing how adaptable humans can be when they don't have any other choice. And speaking of adaptation, let's talk about entertainment. What do you do for fun when you're stuck on a boat with your family and several thousand animals for over a month? Well, you get creative. We started having talent shows. The dolphins did aquatic acrobatics. The monkeys performed comedy routines. The birds did aerial displays. It was like having our own floating circus. My personal favorite was when the parrots learned to imitate my wife's voice. She'd call for me, "Noah, come help with dinner." And I'd go running, only to find out it was just the parrots having a laugh. Those birds had a sense of humor, I'll give them that. A very annoying sense of humor. But the real test of our faith came around day 25. We'd been floating for weeks, the rain had stopped, but there was still water as far as the eye could see in every direction. No land, no landmarks, no indication that this would ever end. That's when the question started. How long are we going to be out here? When will the water go down? Are we ever going home? And I had to look my family in the eye and say, I have absolutely no idea. Because I didn't! There was no user manual for surviving the apocalypse, no GPS system for navigating the post-flood world. We were literally making it up as we went along and hoping for the best. That's when I decided to send out a scout. Now, in the original plan, I was supposed to send out a raven first, then a dove. But let me tell you about this raven, and I'm not naming names, but let's call him Russell. Russell was, how should I put this? Not exactly the most reliable bird I'd ever worked with. I give Russell very clear instructions. Fly around, look for dry land, come back and report. Simple, right? Wrong. Russell flies off, and we don't see him for 3 days. 3 days! When he finally comes back, he looks well-fed, well-rested, and completely uninterested in giving me any useful information. I swear that bird found a floating buffet somewhere and decided to take an unauthorized vacation. So then I try the dove. Now the dove, let's call her Dolly, she was much more professional about the whole thing. I send her out, she comes back the same day with nothing to report. I send her out again a week later, and she comes back with an olive branch. An olive branch! Do you know what that meant? Land, vegetation, hope. I was so excited about that olive branch, I nearly fell overboard trying to get a better look at it. It was just a little twig with a few leaves on it, but to me, it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. It was proof that somewhere out there, the world was starting to grow back. But you know what's funny about hope? It makes you impatient. Once we knew there was land out there, every day felt like a year. Are we there yet? Became the unofficial motto of the Ark. Even the animals seemed restless, like they could sense that our floating adventure was almost over. And then, on day 41, I woke up to a sound I hadn't heard in over a month. Silence. Not the good kind of silence, like when the monkeys finally go to sleep. This was different. This was the absence of water lapping against the hull. I rushed up to the deck, looked over the side, and there it was. Mud. Beautiful, wonderful solid ground. We had landed. After 40 days and 40 nights on the water, we had finally found dry land. And where did we land? On top of a mountain. Of course we landed on top of a mountain. Because apparently, building a boat was just the warm-up exercise. Now I had to figure out how to get several thousand animals down a mountain safely. But before I could start worrying about the logistics of mountain descent with a traveling zoo, I had to deal with the immediate problem. My family wanted to get off the boat. Right now. Immediately. They'd been cooped up for over a month, and they were ready to kiss the ground, smell fresh air, and possibly never set foot on another boat for the rest of their lives. So we opened the doors, lowered the ramps, and started the great animal exodus. And you know what happened? The animals didn't want to leave. After weeks of complaining about the accommodations, the food, the noise, and the smell, they'd gotten comfortable. The Ark had become home. I'm standing there trying to encourage them. Come on, everybody out. Freedom, fresh air, room to roam. And they're all just looking at me like, but we just got settled in. It took hours to convince everyone to disembark. The cats, predictably, left immediately, probably to go find somewhere quiet to judge us all from a distance. The dogs were torn between loyalty to the family and excitement about having space to run. The elephants took forever because, well, they're elephants, and elephants don't do anything quickly. But eventually, everyone was off the boat and starting to explore their new world. And what a world it was. Everything was different. The landscape had been completely reshaped. Mountains were in new places, rivers ran in different directions, and we had to figure out where we were and how to build a life from scratch. That's when it really hit me. We were the restart button for civilization. No pressure there. Just rebuild human society, repopulate the earth, and try not to mess it up this time. No big deal. Just another day in the life of Noah, apparently. But you know what? We figured it out. We found a good spot to settle down, built new homes, planted new crops, and slowly but surely, life began again. The animals went their separate ways, found their new habitats, and started their own families. And us? We started the long process of writing thank you notes for the biggest favor in human history. Looking back on the whole experience, I learned a few things. First, always trust your instincts, even when everyone thinks you're crazy. Second, it's amazing what you can accomplish when failure isn't an option. Third, if someone offers you a building project that seems impossible, say yes anyway. You might surprise yourself. And fourth, laughter really is the best medicine. When you're facing the end of the world, when you're living with zoo animals in a floating box, when nothing makes sense and everything seems hopeless, sometimes the only thing that keeps you sane is the ability to find something, anything, to laugh about. So that's my story, folks. The time I got a mysterious DM that changed everything. The time I went from neighborhood carpenter to captain of the world's first and hopefully last apocalypse cruise. The time I learned that sometimes the biggest adventures start with the smallest acts of faith. And hey, if I ever get another message like that, at least now I know, I'm definitely asking for the blueprint up front, and maybe a project manager, and possibly hazard pay. Thank you. You've been a wonderful audience. Don't forget to tip your waitstaff, and remember, when life floods you out, build a boat and make the best of it. Phew, that was a blast. I'm so exhausted now. Oh, thanks so much for sticking around till the end. Wow, tonight's show really brought the house down, huh? If you enjoyed it, it'd mean a lot if you could drop a little tip using the QR code at the bottom right or the link in the description. That way, I can treat myself to a drink or two. Cheers to that. Hey, if you're into learning by listening while doing other stuff, I've got another channels for that too. Check the links in the description. They're a bit more on the serious side though, not comedy. Oh, and don't forget to hit subscribe, drop a like, and leave a comment. I'd love that. Alright then, guess it's time for me to head out. Thanks again, really. Can't wait to see you at the next show. Bye-bye for now.